Brachos Daf Yud Beis is primarily a discussion of Brachos Kriyishma and which elements are included in the text. The Gemara will discuss a number of different elements that were considered to be included and why each one was rejected. Along the way, the Gemara will speak about the halachos of bowing by Shemona Esrei. The Gemara will speak about the additions to Shemona Esrei, or the changes that are instituted during the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The Gemara will discuss Tefillah L'chayil, praying for a sick person. The Gemara will speak about the fact that if somebody gets embarrassed, he has his averos removed. So let us see what the Gemara has to say. So first of all, the Gemara is coming off a brisa which we had discussed earlier that said that the Kehanim in the Beis HaMikdash had a slightly different version of Brachos Kriyishma. It was shortened, it had less time. The brisa had said that they mentioned the Asar Sedibros, the 10 Commandments. So the Gemara says that there was a movement to include the 10 Commandments in Brachos Kriyishma elsewhere. Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel wanted to have it included in the rest of Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara says that Rabbi Bar Chana wanted to have it included, and he was in Syria, and Ameimar wanted to have it included, and he was in Nahar Da. The Gemara says in each case there were Chachamim who said no. What's the reason not to? Because of the Apikorsim, the heretics. If we had Aseres HaDibros, the 10 Commandments, given a special place, these heretics would say to the unsuspecting that, you see, the Aseres HaDibros is Chas Hashem, the only real part of the Torah, the only thing that Hashem really said, because he said it himself. All the other stuff, that doesn't count. And the proof is that the Aseres HaDibros are the only things that are mentioned together with Brachos Kriyishma. In order to make sure that that didn't happen, we left Aseres HaDibros out of Brachos Kriyishma. Now, the Gemara discusses that which we learned, that the Kehanim added an extra bracha on Shabbos because it was a change of shifts. What was the extra bracha? The Gemara says the shift that was leaving the Beis HaMikdash said to the shift that was entering, Mishashachain as Shemai B'bayis Hazeh, he who rested his name upon this great house, the Beis HaMikdash, hu yashkem b'nechem, he should place between you ava v'achva, love and brotherhood, shalom v'reyos, peace and friendliness. Okay. The Gemara now discusses a shaila in Hilchos Brachos and tries to prove one side or the other from our discussion about Brachos Kriyishma. What's the shaila? Every bracha that we say has two parts to it. There's the standard text, the Baruch Atah Hashem. Often it is also Elokeinu Melech Haolam. That is really the main part of the bracha because it's mentioning Hashem's name. But that's the same in all the brachos. And then there's the second half where we specify the bracha, Shach on the Yibadvar, by Priya Gafen, whatever it is. The Gemara wants to know which part is more important that it be said with the correct bracha in mind. Let's say you say the first half of the bracha and you thought you were saying a shahakal, but then you realized you're supposed to say Agafen, and you switched. You said the first main part intending to say the wrong bracha. Does that mess up the bracha? Or, as long as you say the end correctly, it's fine. It don't matter what you had in mind when you said the first half, since the words are the same anyway. The Gemara says, what's the case? The Gemara says as follows. Let's say you think you're holding in your hand a cup of beer. You start saying shahakal, and after you said Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, sure, you're about to say shahakal, you look down and you see it's wine. So you switch and you say Bar Priya Gafen. So Gemara says that's not a shaila, because over there, the shahakal works on wine. B'diavad, if you said a shahakal on wine, it works. So even though he had in mind shahakal when he said the first half of the bracha, it doesn't matter. Even if he said the whole bracha shahakal, it would work. Gemara says, what is a shaila? Shaila is, let's say it was the reverse case. You thought you were holding a cup of wine. You started saying hagafen. Halfway through, you saw it was beer, you switched to shahakal. Now when you said the main part of the bracha, the Shem Hashem, you thought you were saying a hagafen, which does not work for a shahakal. Does it work anyway because you said the correct words even though you had the wrong intent? Or does it not work because you have to have the right bracha in mind when you say the Baruch Atah Hashem? The Gemara says we could bring two proofs to this discussion from Brachos Kriyishma. Where do we see anything in Brachos Kriyishma about this? The Gemara quotes a brisa. The Gemara says, let's say somebody started to say the wrong bracha. He mixed up the morning Brachos Kriyishma and the night Brachos Kriyishma. In the morning, he started to say Baruch Atah Hashem. He thought he was going to say Marav Haravim, and then he switched and he said, "Oh, it's morning. I mean, Yoitzer Or V'Ari Chayshech." Or the opposite. He started to say at night by Marav. He started to say, he had in mind when he said Baruch Atah Hashem that he was going to say Yoitzer Or, and then he switched and he said Marav Haravim. So the Gemara says, listen, as long as he ended it off correctly, he's Yoitzer. The Gemara says, okay, so here we see a proof that the main thing is the end. The beginning doesn't matter. So the Gemara rejects this because each of those brachos is a long bracha, and after you finish the initial bracha, you have another bracha to Hashem at the end. Bracha to Hashem Yotzer Hamaris, bracha to Hashem Amarav Aravim. You have something at the end. So maybe the reason why you use is because the end of bracha to Hashem is said correctly, even though the beginning of the bracha to Hashem is messed up. But in a bracha like Shahakal or Hagafen, you only have one bracha to Hashem. So if you said it intending to say the wrong bracha, maybe it doesn't work. The Gemara says, hold on. The bracha at the end only helps you according to Rav, who says that Baruch Atah Hashem is enough for a bracha. But Rabbi Yochanan says a real bracha has to have a Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam in there. And if the only thing you're relying on to make this bracha valid is the end bracha, where it's just Baruch Atah Hashem without Elokeinu Melech Haolam, so according to Rabbi Yochanan, this wouldn't make sense. So the Gemara rejects this, and the Gemara therefore says, no, I'll tell you another reason why you can't bring me a proof from Brachos Daf that you do not have to have the right bracha in mind when you say the first words, because really the bracha of Kriya Shema in the morning and in the evening are interchangeable. The main point of the bracha is that you should mention light during the day and at night, and you should mention the darkness in the morning. And as long as you're doing that, it's interchangeable. So it doesn't really matter which one you intended to say when you said Baruch Atah Hashem, because really each one could be used for each one. Says the Gemara, I'll bring you a proof to this discussion from the end of the Brisa. The Brisa concludes, everything goes after the end of the bracha. As long as you said the end of the bracha correctly, it's good. The Gemara says, what is that extra phrase? What are you summing it up for? What are you trying to add there? Must be it's trying to include a case like ours, where you started off with the wrong bracha. You started off thinking you were going to say Hagaf, and you ended up saying a Shahakal. The Gemara says, no, that's not the case it's referring to. It's referring to the case of somebody who was confused between eating bread and dates. The Gemara says, okay, well, which one was which? He said ha'etz, and he was really eating bread, so that's the same as our case. Ha'etz doesn't work for bread. It's just as good a raya as the case of the beer and the wine. Says the Gemara, no, it was the opposite. He thought he was eating bread, and he said a hamaitzi, and it turned out he was really eating the dates. And you know what? The bracha of hamaitzi works on dates as well, because dates also give a person a feeling of being full, and therefore you have no raya. That is a case where the bracha you said works b'diavad, and in that case we never asked the shayla in the first place. Says the Gemara, as part of Birchas Kriyishma, you have to include the paragraph of emes v'yatziv in the morning, and you have to say emes v'amuna at night. How do you know? It's learned out of the pasuk which says as follows: Lahagid baboiker chazdacha. In the morning we should discuss kindness, emunascha, and faithfulness baleilos at night. So the chapter of Emes V'Yatziv talks about chesed, talks about everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for us when He took us out of Mitzrayim. That's chesed. Therefore we have to say that in the morning. The chapter we say in the evening, Emes Ve'amuna, talks about HaKadosh Baruch Hu saving us in the future and taking us out of our present tzara. So that talks about Amuna. So that's what we have to say at night, Ve'munascha baleilos. Now the Gemara goes into the halachos of bowing by Shemona Esrei. The Gemara says, Rabba bar Chinana said the name of Rav, when you bow, you should bow down at the word Baruch, when you begin Shemona Esrei. And when you say the Shem, the name of Hashem, you should straighten up. The Gemara says, how do you know? Because it says Hashem, Zakef Kefufim. When you get to the name Hashem, straighten out the bent. You should straighten up. The Gemara says, well, I'll prove you the opposite. The pasuk in Malachi says, Mipnei Shemi Niches Hu. From my name, you should humble yourself, meaning you should bow. So maybe at the name of Hashem, we should be bowing down. The Gemara says, well, it doesn't say at the name, Bishmi, it says Mipnei Shmi. That means before my name. Bow down before you get to my name. When you get to my name, straighten up. Now, this was said by Rav. The Gemara quotes that Shmuel said to Rav's son Chia, let me tell you something wonderful that your father said. He said this halacha, when you bow by Baruch. When you straighten out by the Shem. How is the bowing supposed to be? The Gemara says, Rav Shesha says, when you bow down, on the way down, you bend like a stick, all at once. The body all goes down at once. But when you straighten up, so you got to be careful. First, you straighten up your head, and then the rest follows. Gemara calls that straightening up like a snake. You shouldn't make it appear as if it's heavy for you to bow all at once. You should rise gently, not in a rush to get out of the bow. Now the Gemara goes into the halachos that we change in Shemona Esrei between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the Aser Simei Tshuva. The Gemara says you have to change Hakel HaKadosh to Hamelch HaKadosh, and you have to change Melech Oyev Tzedakah Mishpat to HaMelech HaMishpat. Both of these refer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's kingship, because these are the times for declaring HaKadosh Baruch Hu's kingship in the world on an extra special level. The Gemara says, Rabbi Elazar says, listen, if b'diavad you said it wrong, you said Hakel HaKadosh, you still fulfill the mitzvah, because as part of the prayers of the Yom HaNerim, we say Vayigba Hashem Tzevaka Mishpat v'Hakel HaKadosh Nikdash B'Tzedakah. So you see that Hakel HaKadosh is an okay phrase to say even during the Yom HaNerim. The Gemara wants to know what happened in the end. The Gemara concludes that halacha is like Rabbah. You have to say HaMelech HaKadosh and you have to say HaMelech HaMishpat. The Gemara now discusses the halachos about saying tefillas for somebody who's sick. The Gemara says somebody who's in a position to daven for somebody who's ill and he does not is called a sinner. What's the proof? Shmuel said to Klal Yisrael, Chalila li mechatoy Hashem, I would never, heaven forbid I should sin to Hashem, mechadol espal badchem, and refuse to daven for you. So you see, somebody who refuses to daven is called a sinner. The Gemara says, and if the person that you're planning to daven for is a Talmid Chacham, then you have to make yourself sick over his illness. You have to daven so much that it hurts you. Says the Gemara, how do you know that? Because you see, Shaul HaMelech, who was a tremendous Talmid Chacham, was complaining, Ve'ein choilo mikem alai. Nobody made him sick over me with his tefillas. The Gemara says, well, maybe that's because he was the king. How do you know that's because he was a Talmid Chacham? So the Gemara brings another source from Tehillim, Va'ani b'chaloisam levushi sak Inesi batseim nafshi svilasi al cheki toshav. Tehillim says that I prayed so much until I got sick, until I oppressed myself in my prayers for other people. The Gemara now says that somebody who does an Aveira but is embarrassed, his Aveira is removed. So the Gemara says, how do you know this? And the Gemara tries three different sources. First, the Gemara brings from Yecheskel, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says about Klal Yisrael, "Man tizkari v'voisht," you'll remember and you'll be ashamed, and then you won't have any more Aveiros, b'pnei kli moseich, b'kaprilach, because of your embarrassment, I'll take your Aveira off. Says the Gemara, that's not a proof. That's the whole Klal Yisrael. Maybe if you're talking about it, tzibor, it comes off. Now it applies to an individual. So the Gemara switches to another source. When Shaul HaMelech was trying to figure out whether or not he should attack the Pelishtim after Shmuel had passed away, he went to the witches to raise Shmuel. And when he finally got Shmuel to appear, Shmuel said, Lama hirgaz tani lahalizasi, why did you raise me up? Why did you anger me to raise me up from the dead? And Shmuel said, because the Pelishtim are troubling me and I don't know what to do. And Hashem doesn't answer me. Hashem won't speak to me, not through Nevi'im, and not through dreams. So Gemara says, why didn't he say, and Hashem won't speak to me through the Urim V'Tumim? Usually that's how messages are given to the king. You ask the Kohen HaGadol, what does Urim V'Tumim say? Shaul couldn't say that, because Shaul had exterminated, he had killed out Noiv Ir HaKahanim, the city of Kahanim. He had them all executed. So he would have been embarrassed to say that to Shmuel, because Shmuel would have said to him, you know why the Urim V'Tumim is not answering you? Because you killed the Kahanim. So Shaul had his embarrassment there, and because of that, that sin was taken off. How do you know the sin was removed? Says the Gemara, because of what Shmuel answered him. Shmuel said, you're going to lose the war, and you and your son will be with me tomorrow, meaning you will be with me in the world to come. Shmuel was saying you won't be alive by tomorrow. But the Gemara says, so you'll be together with me in Olam Haba, which means that Shaul at least heard he was going to Olam Haba, and his Aveira was taken off because of his embarrassment. The Gemara now quotes that the Rabbanan bring a third source for this. There was a hunger in the days of David HaMelech at the end of his reign, and he asked Hashem, what's this from? And he said, because Shaul exterminated the Givonim, who were given the job of being wood choppers and water carriers by Yehoshua, and they were killed when Shaul wiped out Noiv Ir HaKahanim. He killed some Givonim as well, and as a vengefulness for that, this famine is coming. So what did the king do? He went to speak to the Givonim, and he said, what can I do for you that you'll forgive me? So they said to him, give us the 7 descendants of Shaul, and we'll hang them. So the pasuk ends off Bechir Hashem. So the Gemara says Bechir Hashem was not the Gevanim speaking. The Gevanim were making fun of the king, of David. It was Hashem, a baskal, adding Bechir Hashem. This king is the chosen one of Hashem. So you see, because he was embarrassed, he got the label chosen one of Hashem, meaning his averos were taken off. The Gemara now returns to the discussion of which elements were included in Shema, Brachos Kriyashma, which elements were not. So the Gemara says that there was a movement to include the brachos of Valak in Brachos Kriyashma, and it was left out because it's too long. It would be too hard for the tzibur to say it all. So the Gemara says, why did they want to include? What does that have to do with Shema? So the Gemara first tries because one of the things that was said by Valak was Kel Moitzi'am Mitzrayim. It mentions Yitzias Mitzrayim, so that's something to include in Shema. Shema also mentions Yitzias Mitzrayim. The Gemara says, well, if that was the point, so then there are many other places in the Torah where Yitzias Mitzrayim is mentioned. The parsha about Ribis mentions it. The discussion of having accurate weights and measures mentions it. So why don't we say that as part of Shema? The Gemara says it's not the reason. The Gemara has another suggestion. One of the psukim that was said in the bracha from Volok was Kara Shochav Ka'ari. He lay down and bent like a lion. Uchilavi, like a female lion. Mi Yikimenu, who can raise him up? So it talks about Shochav and Yikimenu, like B'shach B'cha'uv Kumecha. It's very similar to that. Therefore, it should be included with Shema or in the Brachos of Kriyashma, Brachos of Shema. So the Gemara, okay. So you didn't want to include the entire blessing of Bala because it was too long, but this is the pasuk. So say just this pasuk. The Gemara says no. If Moshe Rabbeinu left the parsha together, we have no right to break it up. The Gemara now wants to know, why was the parsha of tzitzis included in Shema? The Gemara says because it includes 5 very vital elements. The 5 vital elements are tzitzis, all mitzvahs, accepting all the mitzvahs of Hashem, and rejecting thoughts of heresy, apikorsus, thoughts of Aveira, and thoughts of Avodah Zarah. The Gemara now goes through where each of these are found in the parsha of Tzitzis. The Gemara says, all mitzvahs, it says, Uzachartem es kol mitzvahs Hashem, you accept all of Hashem's mitzvahs. Tzitzis is what it's all about, Vasulam Tzitzis. Yitzias Mitzrayim is mentioned, also the Gemara says, like it says, Asher Hoitzeisi. Now, where does it discuss rejecting thoughts of heresy and Aveira and Avodah Zarah? So the Gemara says, where it says, don't stray after your hearts, levavchem, acher levavchem, that's talking about heresy, like it says, Amar nevel belivoy ein elikim. In his heart he said, there is no elikim, chas v'shalom. How do you know thoughts of Aveira? It says, don't stray after your eyes, acher einechem, that's talking about Aveira. Like Shimshon said that he wants to marry Delilah because he's Yeshara be'einai, that was eyes leading him on. And thoughts of Avodah Zarah is like it says, Zainim, like it says, Vayiznu acharei haba'olim. That word, Zainim, indicates Avodah Zarah. Now we start a new Mishnah, a famous Mishnah, which we say in the Haggadah every year. The Mishnah quotes a discussion between Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and the Chachamim. What is the meaning of the pasuk Laman Tizkar Zayim Seischem Eretz Mitzrayim Kol Yemei Chayecha? In order that you should mention Yitzias Mitzrayim all the days of your life. What is the 2 indications here of the days of your life and the extra word all? Kol Yemei Chayecha. So Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says the days of your life are, you should say it during the day. Kol is that you should say it at night. The Chachamim say Yemei Chayecha is this world, Kol Yemei Chayecha is the days of Mashiach, we will still say it. Now the Mishnah mentioned Agav that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said that I am like 70 years old because his beard had suddenly turned white. So now the Gemara says that Ben Zayma asked the Chachamim, how can you say that we're going to say Yitzias Mitzrayim in the days of Mashiach? But the pasuk says, Hine Yamim Boim No Hashem. Hashem says days are coming. Lo Yomru Oid Chai Hashem Asher Hel Ben Yisrael Meretz Mitzrayim. Will not refer to Hashem as He who took us out of Mitzrayim anymore. Ki Im Chai Hashem Asher Hel VaAsher Hevi Ezera Beis Yisrael Me'eretz Tzvayim Chol HaRatzos Asher Hidachtim Sham. We will praise HaKadosh Baruch for taking us from all the lands that were spread around. We won't talk about Yitzias Mitzrayim anymore. The Gemara says, no, not that Yitzias Mitzrayim we won't talk about anymore. It just won't be the main thing which we will use to praise Hashem anymore. We will talk about the next salvation of Mashiach, but Yitzias Mitzrayim will always be there in the background. The same thing you find by Yaakov Avinu. The pasuk says, Lo yikra shemcha Yaakov ki Yisrael yeshemecha. You won't be called Yaakov anymore, only Yisrael. But you see many times throughout the Torah from that point onward, he's still referred to as Yaakov. So what it means is that your main name will be Yisrael, but Yaakov will certainly still be a name of yours.